President Tinubu shakes up cabinet. New faces, new roles emerge.
Mr. President and the FEC decided that all these commissions that have been created and signed by the National Assembly will be brought under the supervision of the SY Ministry of Niger Delta, which is now redesignated as the Ministry of Regional Development.
Out of school crisis, Senate pushes for national summit to find solutions.
This is clearly the future of Nigeria, and I pray that through the national summit, the resolutions will be implemented, issues will be well highlighted.
House of Reps to investigate repeated electricity grid collapses.
This sad development is coming at a time when the Honorable Minister of Power has given assurances to the nation.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall focus on cabinet reshuffle.
All right, it's no longer news, or it is trending, that the Federal Executive Council have pressed reset, dissolving the Ministry of Niger Delta Affairs and Ministry of Sports Development.
Indeed, Claire, this bold move came out of yesterday's FEC meeting in Abuja, a step in the President's vision to streamline governance and sharpen Nigeria's edge.
All right, so now we have a new Ministry of Regional Development tasked with guiding the Niger Delta Development Commission and, of course, other emerging development commissions, all under one roof.
And the goal? Simplify, centralize, and supercharge regional progress, cutting through red tape to boost growth. And in sports, a National Sports Commission, well, that makes a return, takes the baton, geared to drive the game on home soil and global stage.
I'm sure that's an area that will interest you, Victor.
Of course.
The National
Of
Sports
course.
Commission, like you rightly said, it's making a rebound.
Yeah.
But of course, that's not all. The FEC also merged, some ministries, Ministry of Tourism with the Ministry of Culture and Creative Economy. And this union is supposed to blend the beauty of our lands with pulse of our culture, showcasing Nigeria's rich heritage to the world.
So, welcome to Good Morning Nigeria. Today we are unpacking these sweeping changes. Absolutely. What do they mean for the nation's future? Our panel will delve very deep into the hows and whys and explore their impact on Nigeria's economy, society, and politics. I am Victor Azu.
And I'm Claire Adilabu Abdul Razak. Coming up, Victor.
Chukwudi Okolubaja, of course, will join us with the newspaper review. But first, here is Dennis Adegunloye with today's top stories. Good morning, Dennis.
Good morning, Dennis.
Good morning, Victor and Claire. Good morning, Nigeria. Here is the morning news. In a major review of his administration structures, President Bola Tinubu has relieved 5 ministers of their appointments, with 7 new ones nominated. This is in addition to some decisions taken at the Federal Executive Council meeting, which include realignments of some federal ministries.
All these commissions that have been created and signed by the National Assembly will be brought under the supervision of the SY Ministry of Niger Delta, which is now redesignated as the Ministry of Regional Development. For our people over there in the Niger Delta region, I would like them to know that that has not removed anything from them. The NDDC is still very much in place, which is still under the Ministry of Regional Development, and all other such agencies are there. It's just a question of change of nomenclature.
So it's an expansion. What the Federal Executive Council has seen is the need to bring this development closer to this, to the people, closer to their regions. And so there's now an integration of the function of all these commissions under the supervision of the new Ministry of Regional Development.
And President Bola Tinubu has sworn in Dr. Abdullahi Usman Bello as the new chairman of the Code of Conduct Bureau. The short ceremony was at the commencement of the Federal Executive Council meeting on Wednesday. 50-year-old Dr. Abdullahi Bello from Gombe State is a fellow of the Association of Chartered Certified Accountants in the UK and a certified fraud examiner in the US. He is a PhD holder and in anti-money laundering compliance from Northumbria University, United Kingdom. Dr. Bello, who has performed roles related to anti-corruption, anti-money laundering, financial intelligence analysis, forensic accounting, financial investigation, accounting and finance, promises to bring his experience to bear as he leads the Code of Conduct Bureau. The Senate is of the view that tackling the problem of out-of-school children in Nigeria requires the convergence of stakeholders to come up with comprehensive solutions, and it has therefore adopted a resolution that a national summit on out-of-school children be convened for participation by the federal and sub-nationals.
Total turnaround for our educational philosophy in this country.
Different levels of stakeholders need to come together to fashion out a lasting solution to this.
This is clearly the future of Nigeria, and I pray that through the national summit, the resolutions to be implemented, issues to be well highlighted, and then all efforts to be made to bring this menace to an end so that our children can have a better future and not an adulthood in banditry, an adulthood in Boko Haram, an adulthood in fraud. I thank you all.
The House of Representatives has directed its Committee on Power to investigate the frequent collapse of the national grid and provide a report within 3 weeks for legislative action.
This sad development is coming at a time when the Honorable Minister of Power has given assurances to the nation of a stable power sector during the increase in power tariff.
This motion is referred to the Committee on Power for further legislative action.
A 41-year-old Canadian lady, Adrienne Munju, has been convicted and sentenced to 11 years imprisonment by a federal high court in Lagos for importing 74 parcels of Canadian Loud, a strong strain of synthetic cannabis weighing more than 35 kilograms, into Nigeria. NDLEA arrested her at Terminal 1 of the Murtala Mohammed International Airport, Ikeja, Lagos, on Thursday, 3rd of October 2024, during the inward clearance of inbound passengers at the arrival hall of the airport. The judge, however, gave the convict an option of 50 million naira fine on each of the 2 counts she was convicted of, bringing the total fine to 100 million. Chairman of the NDLEA, Brigadier General Mohammed Bubar Marwa, retired, said the prompt conviction and sentencing of the convict, as well as the stiff penalty, will send a strong warning to foreigners and others who may be contemplating bringing illicit drugs into Nigeria. Well, those are the highlights of the news at this time. Good morning. Nigeria continues with Claire and Victor after this commercial break. Please don't go away.
As your president, I assure you that we are committed to finding sustainable solutions to alleviate the suffering of our citizens. Once again, I plead for your patience as the reforms we are implementing show positive signs, and we are beginning to see the light at the end of the tunnel.
On the 25th of October 2024, Air Peace marks its 10-year anniversary, a significant milestone in the aviation sector in Nigeria. For a decade, Air Peace has stayed committed to providing world-class services to passengers home and abroad. With just 7 aircraft in 2014, to becoming the largest airline in West Africa. Despite the challenges over the years, Air Peace continues to revolutionize air travel, adding new destinations and fleets to support millions of travelers across the globe. Air Peace is pleased to announce the attendance of Vice President Senator Kashim Shettima, a special guest of honor, other dignitaries including former President Olusegun Obasanjo as guest of honor, and Minister of Aviation and Aerospace Development Festus Keyamo, governors of the Federating States of Nigeria, including Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu, as host governor. Air Peace has also put together the best in Afrobeats, including Grammy-nominated star Davido, Flavor, Casey, and a night of inspirational songs with Timi Dakolo, Adaehi, Mirabel Chisholm, and Efezino. Air Peace proudly serves over 20 domestic destinations within Nigeria, 7 international routes, and 10 regional locations. We thank Nigerians for their support on October 25th at the Echo Hotel and Suites. See you there.
The Council of Our Fathers.
I will urge and advise our younger generation to use talent and brain to sort out problems, not arms.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
From the Atlantic across the savannah to the Sahara, we rise, a land of the free, we know they tire. We dream great, our spirit is undying.
Resilient, rooted like palm tree, we sway in colors, with undying demand. We make solutions, we ignite passion, yeah. Each ethnicity is unique, we have more than just a nation. We are Nigeria, we are Nigeria, strengthening unity, we know they carry lives. We are Nigeria, we are Nigeria, together live the dream of a land with great destiny. We are Nigeria.
I am the real Nigerian. Brought to you by the National Orientation Agency, NOA.
This Saturday, Werder Bremen, Bayer Leverkusen. Watch live Werder Bremen versus Bayer Leverkusen on Sporty TV.
Sporty Bet sponsors coverage of the German Bundesliga.
Thank you for joining us once again and welcome. It's Good Morning Nigeria, and coming up next will be newspaper review with Chukwudi Okulugbaja.
All right. Welcome back. Chukwudi Okulugbaja is in the house. I just want to annoy him.
Don't laugh me into not giving you an assignment. Your job here is not complete if you don't form a song out of Good Morning Nigeria. We're looking out for that song. How are you, ladies and gentlemen?
That's ladylike.
All right, let's quickly begin with the leadership. Victor, you have two. I think you should start.
Let me begin with the New Telegraph. And it leads with this major story, of course, as expected. Speculations over Tinubu sacks Speculations over as Tinubu sacks Uju Kennedy, Tahir, 3 other ministers in cabinet rejig. Of course, that story has riders, nominates Bianca Ojukwu, 6 others. Others renaming, merging, scrapping of ministries. Appoints Sunday Dari as media aide. Okes Diko as DG of NSC. Clark faults scrapping of Niger Delta Ministry. Says lumping NDDC together with other regional commissions unhealthy. Of course, that story is spread across pages 4, 6, and 31. And there's this picture story of the Delta State Governor Sheriff Oborewuri admiring a souvenir presented to him by the acting MDCAN chairman, Delsuits, and the rest of them. And beside that story, you have PDP postpones NEC meeting to stop Ayedatiwa as Governor Mohammed says he didn't take party to court. That story is on page 2. Why Obasanjo Danjuma wants paradigm shift in political leadership. Page 7. Ganduje's alleged bribery case cut to appear to hear pending applications November 20. That's on page 4. And suspicious vehicle. UK's Birmingham airport evacuated. All flights suspended. Page 6. And at the bottom of the front page of the New Telegraph, fake OK's 443.3 million euros, $141 million facility from financiers to procure fighter jets ammunition. And finally, unclaimed baggage at MMA2 destroyed, given to charity after 6 months, says COO. Okay, that's Chief Operating Officer, I suppose. And that takes us to the blueprint. Again, the same story leads here. FEC OK's 443.3 million euros, $141 million for 6 M346 fighter aircraft ammunition. Approves establishment of Creative Economy Fund. And then the picture story of the FEC meeting of yesterday, which came out with so much. Clark rejects scrapping of Niger Delta Ministry as Tinubu drops Tahir, 4 other ministers. We've read the details of that story earlier. And in sports, Diko heads NSC as Tinubu scraps sports ministry, page 32. Ododo increases monthly pension of Kogi retirees by 10,000 naira, page 9. IMF comments CBN's forex reforms. Aggressive interest rate hikes, page 21. That's on business. I think we should leave it here.
You don't have any more to read.
I do, actually.
All right, let's take the leadership and almost all the stories. And of course, we know the story that is trending at the moment. It's a headline news on the leadership. Victor has also alluded to that, but you can see the picture of the main people that are leading the headline stories. Of course, Kennedy Ohanenye there, Maman, Tahiri, Ade John, Gwarzo, Bill Ibrahim, all on the front page there. But just a bit above the nameplate, FCCPC blames hoarders for food inflation and scarcity. And FG drops charges against Binance executive. Other stories, of course, just on the window side, on the right-hand column, that should be to your left. Senate calls for summit over out-of-school children. Details of that story is on page 6. I think let's bring in Chukwudi Kulubadia. Chukwudi, I think we are discussing in full today the cabinet reshuffle, so we'll just probably do a quick review of that.
I guess we can just talk about, let me quickly talk about the, the reinforcement we're bringing into the combat, capabilities of our forces. I read about the M346 fighter aircraft being planned, some 5 days ago. I'm actually happy that FEC has given its official stamp to it. I'm not a military analyst, but if you look at the trend now, much of the fighting is born by the Air Force or whatever air power each wing of the forces, can muster. So we are only trying to update ourselves and see if we can stop the enemy being ahead of us. In the case of Nigerian insurgents and bandits and the rest of them, we must be able to become Minutemen. In the army, the Minuteman is that man who prepares for battle within 5 minutes of hearing the bugle. So it's about our battle readiness. I really am grateful that this has happened. The real news now,
sorry,
Yes.
you remember, I think during the presidency of Obama, there was an attempt to acquire, not an attempt, yes, but I think there was an embargo on that.
Yes.
That's the what was the name of that?
But the Tucanos eventually came in.
Yes.
Yes, they eventually came in, 12 of them. Yes. 6 came in first, the other 6 joined. They initially had reservations because they said we will subject it to use that runs contrary to the contractual terms that enable the United States government to give you such aircraft,
So to what use have we deployed them?
I am not in the theater of operation.
Of course, I know.
And certain things are restricted.
I think
you and I judge by the result we see on the ground.
Those were concerns.
Are we seeing? Yeah.
Those were concerns at that time. Whether the concerns became valid eventually, well, we may
Nobody
not know.
put it to the test.
But those were just concerns.
But in the case of Israel, for instance, the latest they're telling them is you're using the aircraft for what runs contrary to our constitution. And this last time, from last week, they really mean it. Maybe that's why Netanyahu is beginning to soften up a bit.
They really mean it?
I said they really mean it this time around.
Do they?
Oh, it's okay.
Well, that's not for us. We're just raising issues about this latest
exactly. I'm just trying to draw comparisons.
Yes, 141 million.
The Americans
million
stick
dollars.
to certain things about how they live their lives, even though we say that sometimes their policeman duty all over the world does not quite benefit us. The ministries now,
anyway,
let's quickly just do a one-liner on it because you're going to talk extensively about it.
Precisely.
Let the experts do that. The questions that arise is this the correct shot in the arm we need for things to be reinvigorated so that the Nigerian voter sees more action coming from those elected to, oversee his or her affairs. So we only hope that this has been thoroughly, checked and found out to be the best way to go. Government is always in the know about, they say who wears the shoe knows where it does what? It pinches, So let's pray that is the right actions that have been taken.
FCCPC blames hoarders for food inflation and security. Is this something new, or is it telling us what we already know?
No, you are blaming editors for making news what isn't news to us. So don't. The point is this: why would hoarding be allowed to go on and on? Isn't there an agency, tasked with making sure that such things don't happen? So if I were the editor there, I'm going to say, when I saw this, I will go to say, they're blaming hoarding for it. Why are you guys not doing your work? That's where the news is. I know editors have different discretions about that.
But even then, hoarding as a strategy, how long can you hoard food? And what kind of food can you hoard for how long?
Well,
if indeed that's the case.
A tomato is perishable.
Okay, listen to what the FCCPC is saying. Though the FCCPC Act prescribes stiff penalties ranging from heavy fines to jail terms for offenders, Bello, who is the boss of the FCC, told Kano stakeholders that the Commission chooses to first explore the option of dialogue in the spirit of democracy. Who are you dialoguing with?
Is the dialogue working? As I always say, I can't sit in the studio here and tell the Minister of Agriculture how best to farm, because he has people who know about how the ministry will work more than I do. So is dialogue working? If it's not working, what's the next step? Because the hoarding continues.
Okay, let's look at the outdoor.
I'm not sure
okay.
hoarding is what the issue is. I'm not sure.
No,
you can't hoard. There are a lot of food kinds that you can't hoard for long.
For long, but you see,
they go bad. So
don't dismiss it.
Is it
outrightly?
Is the food prices that occasion this, isn't it? But the truth, really, to me, my own private survey, is that the reason food prices are high in this country today is because the North is not allowed to farm the way they used to farm.
And let's not forget the impact
I hear we are even taking some food items to the North now. And I tell Nigerians, when everybody wants to run into their tents and form up their countries and all that, I say you now have opportunity to know how important the Northerner is to the rest of us.
Let's not also forget,
do you understand?
Let's not also forget the impact of flooding. It really caused a lot of devastation. Yes,
ecological
reasons. And this is where the state executives also need to, do something about climate change. This is where the people, also need to do something about our habits, our behavior, how we dump, sachet, you call pure water sachet, and all those things, bottles, plastics,
Pure water sachet, clear. If you see fish washed up on the shore, go and check his bowels. You'll meet plastic there. That's it.
Terrible.
You plant yam. Nyere does not want me to talk about farming all the time. You plant yam, it meets plastic in the soil there. It stops, the tuber stops protruding in there. Plastic stops you dead. We have to take care of plastic.
Okay, there's another one, Victor. Senate calls for a summit over out-of-school children. Long overdue, would you say?
Senate calls for summit. Talk shops work, but action speaks louder than words. Many of the things I said, for instance, at the time, I started reading about storage facilities for farmers when I was in primary 4, 1968. Today, 2024, I'll be 67 years on December 5. We are still talking about storage facilities for farmers. It's not come yet. That's a problem. We have to get to work and make words become action.
I'm not sure I see what the talk shop is going to reveal that is not already known. So why not just get to it?
Let's get to work.
You spend money to put together a show, and then you eventually that may not even be adhered to. So you know what the issues are. It's all out there. Why not just get to work?
Victor, you know one of the things I tell my children, I tell them your father can't be called a rich man today because he didn't plan his life properly, effectively. Multi-streaming of income avenues is supposed to be taught in schools. Money sense should be taught from primary 1. To become a rich man is an arrangement. We don't have it. Build it into the curriculum. All the Turentia I speak, I don't know how many houses it has fetched for me. But do you know that getting our children to learn skills from 5 could make all the difference before they turn 30 in life? Many things need to be changed the way we behave. Yes, and make us more prosperous people on a very prosperous land God gave us.
And we need to address the fundamental, or root cause of out of school. Some of those children are forced out of school.
I agree.
Compelled to be out of school by circumstances.
Out of school syndrome indicts us not just as parents, not just as governments, but as society. In those days, you see a child on the road. What are you doing here? Why are you not in school? Exactly. You're not the father. You give him one. Why you? Or he's in school uniform. In the excuse that it is recess time. He goes from picking cherry into the market and all that. You chase him back to school. Our attitude to learning changed. First of all, Yahoo boys are beginning to tell us that it is not good to be educated. But I want to tell you, any society that does not have an academic backbone will never succeed. Even as we say that skills are coming. It's not skills that make you become a NASA, scientist. You have to read properly.
It's not late yet. I think we can still, because every day there are still young ones under 5 who can still be taught some of these things.
It's never late to mend. That's an English proverb.
We'll leave it here, right?
Okay.
So that you can see we are thanking you properly. We are not thanking you.
I know. I'm packing already. I've got the message.
We wish you a great day.
Thank you.
All right. You're watching Good Morning Nigeria. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
Nigeria, ready to breathe cleaner air and save money? Let's talk about gas. Drive with CNG, the smart, cost-effective choice. Fill up for less and travel further. Save money, save the planet. Switch to LPG for cooking. It's cleaner, healthier, and better for environment. Say goodbye to smoke and eye problems. Do you know Nigeria is a gas nation ranked 9th globally with over 209 trillion cubic feet of gas reserve? Gas isn't just for cooking and driving. It powers industries too. Cleaner, cheaper, and more efficient. And the best part, conversion centers are popping up everywhere. It's never been easier to switch to gas. Join the cleaner energy revolution. Choose LPG for cooking and CNG for your vehicles. Clean energy for brighter future. This message is brought to you by the Office of the Honorable Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Gas, supported by the Nigeria Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, NMDPRA.
Can you flex your vocals for us? It could be one of your songs, by the way.
People fall in love in mysterious way.
So why do they call you Able Child?
They called me that when I was in school. That was my nickname then in school.
Any reason in particular why they called you Able Child?
Yeah, because I was actually one of the brilliant students.
Oh, say, Amami! That answer right there. You must, if it's not on this board, problem. That means people that answer this survey, they have body odor. Yeah.
The counsel of our fathers.
My advice to these young people is please do not take us back to those harrowing days. You probably do not know what it is.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
The federal government of Nigeria warns vandals of national assets, electricity transmission towers, cables and other facilities to desist from this act of sabotage. Vandalism is a serious crime punishable under the law. Vandalizing electrical equipment will affect millions of Nigerians, including your loved ones. Remember that national assets belong to all of us, hence the need to protect them. Report all cases of suspicious movement around electrical facilities to security agencies. When you see something, say something. This message is from the Federal Ministry of Information and National Orientation in collaboration with the National Counter-Terrorism Center, NCTC, Office of the National Security Advisor.
Welcome to Manchester.
This Saturday, Manchester City.
Erling Haaland for the 100th time!
Southampton.
As Lallana gets it forward to Dibbling! What a moment for time!
Manchester City versus Southampton, live on Sporty TV. Sportybet sponsors coverage of the English Premier League.
All right, thanks for staying with us. Just to get us into the conversation this morning, which is, of course, on the cabinet reshuffle, let's take this background report.
President Bola Tinubu returned to chair the Federal Executive Council meeting after his vacation abroad. With memos accumulated, it was expected to be a long session. But then, it ended to be one of the briefest FEC meetings so far. However, the outcomes of the meeting are not as short as the duration, with two separate briefing sessions afterwards. First, the ministerial briefing chaired by the Information and National Orientation Minister Mohammed Idris revealed the review of the ministries. While the hitherto Ministry of Sport Development has been scrapped for its responsibility to be taken by the National Sports Commission, the Ministry of Tourism is now subsumed under the Ministry of Arts, Culture and Creative Economy. The Ministry of Niger Delta Affairs now has a wider scope to cover other regional commissions and renamed Ministry of Regional Development.
Today, Mr. President and the FEC decided that all these commissions that have been created and signed by the National Assembly will be brought under the supervision of the SY Ministry of Niger Delta, which is now redesignated as the Ministry of Regional Development. For our people over there in the Niger Delta region, I would like them to know that that has not removed anything from them. The NDDC is still very much in place, which is still under the Ministry of Regional Development, and all other such agencies are there. It's just a question of change of nomenclature.
So it's an expansion. What the Federal Executive Council has seen is the need to bring this development closer to this, to the people, closer to their regions. And so there's now an integration of the function of all these commissions under the supervision of the new Ministry of Regional Development.
Other decisions directly from the presidency were announced by the presidential media team. These include the discharge of 5 ministers, reassignments of 10, and nomination of 7 new ones for onward transmission to the National Assembly. The discharged ministers are Women Affairs, Uju Kennedy Ohaneye, Lola Adejon, former Minister of Tourism, Professor Tahir Mama, former Minister of Education, Abdullahi Mohammed Gwazo, former Minister of State, Housing and Urban Development, and Jamila Bio Ibrahim, former Minister of Youth Development.
The President met them this afternoon to thank them for their services for the nation.
The new nominees are Nentawe Yitwatsda, nominated for Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Reduction, Mohammed Megeri Dingyadi, Labor and Employment, Bianca Odumegu Ojuku, Minister of State Foreign Affairs, Jumoke Oduole, Industry, Trade and Investment. Idi Mukhtar Meha is nominated to pioneer the newly established Ministry of Livestock Development. Yusuf Abdullahi Atta, Minister of State, Housing and Urban Development, and Suwaiba Saeed Ahmed, Minister of State, Education.
Honorable Dr. Yusuf Tanko Sunono, Minister of State Education as of now, is now the Minister of State, Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Reduction. Dr. Morufu Olatunji Alausa, who is currently Minister of State for Health, is now the Minister of Education. Barrister Bello Mohammed Guronyo, who is Minister of State, Water, Resources and Sanitation, is now going to be Minister of State Works.
All right, that was background report by Musbarat Dan Wahab, our State House correspondent, giving us, of course, lowdown of what transpired yesterday at the FEC meeting. And we have very important guests right here in the studio to give us more insight into the cabinet reshuffle. And I'll quickly begin with the introductions. And we have here Abdulaziz Abdulaziz, who is the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Print Media. And we're very glad that you could find time to join us for this conversation.
Thank you for having me.
It's also a pleasure to have with us today Professor Abiodun Adeniyi, Dean, School of Postgraduate Studies, Bayes University. Prof, it's always a pleasure to have you with us.
It's a pleasure.
To have you with us, our own.
Thank you.
Victor.
All right, and we have also been joined here in the studio by Osita Okechukwu, former Director General, Voice of Nigeria, VON. A pleasure to welcome you to Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning, Nigeria.
All right, gentlemen, thank you.
We have one more.
One more. Okay.
Who's joined us via Zoom?
Oh, yes.
Because it's not visible here. So we have also been joined by Dr. Abdurrahman Abu Hamisu, a political scientist and public affairs analyst. Thank you for making it this morning.
Thank you for having me. Good morning, Nigerians.
All right, gentlemen, thank you for coming and obliging us your time. I'd like to start with the Senior Special Assistant to the President because, of course, he's with the print media, and I'd like you to begin with some clarifications because we've seen, throughout last night, the print media, social media, have gone with different captions, ministers sacked, those days. But the presidency has come out to say, look, we have only reshuffled the cabinet. And because sack, connotes kind of negativity and abruptness of, end of a kind of, job and all that. Just give us, what is it really?
Thank you very much, Clara. And I think as a newsman, I'll also start with a little story. So when I went home yesterday evening, my wife was asking if the ministers have been replaced who were sacked. And that tells you, the framing issue that you are talking about. And I think it comes from, thankfully we have a media scholar here. It comes from our own thought in the Nigerian media that always the bad news is the news. So of course some say the unusual. But removing somebody is not unusual. But then to now concentrate solely on sack. So that was the story that a lot of people, as I told you, even my wife was asking, when will the ministers be replaced? So it shows that people, a lot of the media, especially in online, concentrated on the issue of sack or frame it as sack, and that they made that to be like the main issue. And
so they were not sacked.
Yes, I was saying last night somewhere else that I feel what happened actually is a rationalization of the entire cabinet, and I call it rationalization, which is actually not the word used in the statement, but it's because if you see what happened, like a lot of changes internally, even among the people who are there now. There were ministries who had ministers of state that were now removed because the feeling is that they don't need ministers of state. And then other ministries who had no such arrangement now have ministers of state. Now back to the issue of sack. So what happened is assessment to now retool the wheels of governance to find optimal use of people, its optimal use of human resource, which is only natural in any human resource setting, whether it be in bank, in newsrooms, in schools. Effective managers, time to time, do this kind of stock taking. You find out that sometimes there are people that are so well mannered, you don't even, as a manager, you don't even want let them go. But you have to, because you want to optimize performance in that area. So it's the same thing that happened in the sense that the president has personal relationship with nearly all of these people affected by these changes. So saying, please go, is not like a vote of no confidence. It's not like, it's not something that was done with malice or anything. But it was done in the interest of the country, in the interest of the administration, to see that, yes, this person is my friend. This person has come a long way with me. But now the president showed that his government, or he as a person, is willing to take tough decisions in the interest of the country. For example, there are some of the ministers removed yesterday were people that had been with the president from ACN, the Minister of Education, the Minister of State for Housing, I know. You know, the Minister of Women Affairs was aspirant in the APC who withdrew for the president on the day of the primary. So, nearly all of them have this kind of personal relationship with the president. But for him, it is about how do we get the best for the country, especially at this time. We know that Nigerians are groaning, and we don't, the president doesn't want to take that for granted, and he wants to he's always thinking of how best to take the country out of the woods. And if it means, inconveniencing some friends to optimize that, why not? And that was what happened, actually.
All right. Even though I would have loved you along the line to have said, if you were still in the field, how you would couch yours to be different. Somebody, we were having a light-hearted conversation yesterday, and someone said, well, maybe I would say, excuse us, fake tells XYZ. You know, if that would sound better.
One thing is, as I was saying, what happened was actually rationalization. And even if you take by the number, even had it been like he sacked 20 people, 20 people were removed, then that is something that is quite huge that we can say sack, because it shows that it was like a purge, But this is 5, and 7 were appointed. So even if at that scale, you could see that the appointments outweigh even the removal. So, but why?
But was it based on the bond? At the start of the administration, there was a signing of performance bond, and it was said that performance will be judged based on certain empirical data. So was this what did you call it? Realign. There was a word you used.
No. Reorganization.
Reorganization.
Not actually reorganization. Rationalization.
Renationalization.
Rationalization.
Yes. Yeah. Now, this renationalization of the cabinet, was it based on the performance bond?
Yes, certainly. Certainly, it's not because the president didn't like the face of XYZ. You understand? As I said, a number of them have actually a relationship with him prior to them becoming ministers or him becoming the president. So it was actually a product of that scientific analysis and assessment. As you said, when the president was swearing them in I think September last year, he made it clear that he is going to hold them accountable. He is going to assess them. And that assessment was not done just haphazardly. There were KPIs, for every minister, and there were even a time when Nigerians were also asked for inputs. The presidential delivery units actually asked for, asked Nigerians to vote to give their opinion on individual ministers. It happened some months ago. So this was like a product of both empirical and qualitative and quantitative data, as researchers like Professor Adeni would say. So it's not just something that was because of the faces or names of the individuals.
Okay, but let's get into the meat of the issue. One area that seems to have already generated controversy was the scrapping of the Ministry of Niger Delta Affairs. The elder statesman Ike Clark already reacted that this isn't good enough. Of course, while the Niger Delta Development Commission remains, the ministry dedicated to the development of the Niger Delta is no longer there. Would you say that in the thinking of Mr. President that the development of the region is still covered as much as it was with this new arrangement?
Well, let me approach it 2 ways. First is, let me say that I don't think the Niger Delta have had a friend in the villa as much as they have in President Bola Tinubu. He's somebody that is, in fact, by their own reckoning, is like one of their own. He's been very, very positive towards issues that affect the development of the Niger Delta, and even both in terms of appointments, in terms of tangible plans, and you can see that in also the reciprocal gesture from there, with improved security, with improvement in oil production, which and stability there, which shows you that the cordiality that exists between the present administration and the Niger Delta region. Now, secondly, we should also, and that's why I call the whole thing, the whole exercise rationalization. Because if you look at it, we should look at how to like prioritize government spending. You know, we have a lot of duplications, and a lot of times Nigerians come out to cry about high cost of governance, this and that. Meanwhile, you are having duplicitous agencies. You have Ministry of Niger Delta Development Commission, and at the end of it, they overlap. And in fact, in a number of places, I remember there was an inquiry, I think, at the National Assembly, where contracts were found to be awarded by the two entities for the same project, you know, in some places. So, and even the issue of supervision, when, how does it even work? Even though the ministry is supposed to be ahead, but you find out that it's just one very inconvenient or cumbersome process. Now, with this arrangement, that NDDC remains. And in fact, even arrangement, the bulk of the money goes to NDDC. It is NDDC that is largely, because I know at the end that is like what everybody looks at. The money that goes there is largely, you know, NDDC, and it will still be there. And the ministry will still be there. It's just that it's just like Shakespeare would say, what's in a name? So at the end, it's about the name. You know, it's just bringing, as the minister explained in the clip earlier, it's just to, it's actually expanded to bring in other development commissions, and therefore you cannot continue to call it Ministry of Niger Delta now. So because it encompasses Northeast Development Commission, Southwest, and others, and therefore had to be renamed into Ministry of Regional Development.
All right, thank you very much. We'll come back to that, and Victor was really in a hurry to delve into, you know, the nitty-gritty. But I'd like for Prof and the former DG to also weigh in on, you know, the merit of this exercise, the re-rationalization, according to Abdulaziz now. In terms of, you know, if you look at the timing now, and then you look at the quality of the rationalization. Let's start with Prof.
Well, for me, I think usually some of these things can actually be indifferent to it, you know. And this is because it's something that we actually expect, you know, every or change any minister, you know, all through the period, you know, all through the period. You're very cautious. Yes, you know, all through the period he was there, you know, but previous ministers, you know, are usually disposed to changing the machinery, the levers of government for different reasons, you know. And one could be politics, the other could be performance. When it is politics, it's about satisfying interests that have not been satisfied before, or because they are pandering to the pressure tactics of other interests who are still feeling that they missed out, you know, in an earlier constitution of the cabinet, you know. And in some other case, that's the politics probably intemperate, you know, however any little thing you can ask a minister to go. But again, now we are here, 17 months down the line, we're having a reshuffle. The other thing that can also lead to it is performance, you know. But performance can also neither be here nor there. It's for the president to measure, to determine who is doing well and who is not doing well. Sometimes, again, it can come from public opinion, public perception, which could be right or wrong. And sometimes it can also come from the judgment of the president, you know, that this has happened or this has not happened. Or maybe from those around him thinking that this person made a mistake at the time, and so he should be punished with a replacement. Or perhaps they think that there's a powerful person somewhere who is probably more capable, so let's bring him in because we missed him the last time and it's not causing us trouble. Different reasons can also determine the performance question. So it is not unexpected that we're having it. And if you remember, some 2-3 months down the line, particularly after President Tinubu became 1 year in office, there were agitations and circles that let's have a cabinet reshuffle. And it has come to be like something that people enjoy. They just want to see that musical chair, you know, sometimes imagining that, okay, this time around, There's nobody I know that is on board. Perhaps if there's another reshuffle, I'll probably know somebody or know somebody that knows somebody.
Yes.
Consistent with, our system where things hardly happen on merit. It's about who you know when you want to get things done.
But what do you think about the quality, just before we bring in the DG, the quality of the re-rationalization? I like to use this word because that should be authentic.
Yes, I was coming to there, finally. And, it's about who you know, not necessarily how things getting done on merit. But in terms of quality, again, it reminds us of the Hadiza Bala Osman body or the unit that is responsible for policy.
Bond, yes.
Well, it could be, maybe there was some input from there, but in some cases, looking at it, there are some people who have been discharged or who have been victim of the rationalization, according to Abdulaziz, who I don't believe, were discharged because of non-performance, because these were competent people who probably lost out because of some other reasons. But again,
like who?
No, maybe we shouldn't. But yeah, like the education minister, for instance. Okay. And I believe that a gentleman, very competent person, very experienced, and maybe again he will probably have been overwhelmed by politics, And like you said, I agree again, is that for some of them, and particularly himself, if he's been asked to go, it's not because he didn't perform.
But was his performance relatable to what is happening in the education sector? Because you are saying that.
Oh yeah, in the education sector we had some fits. ASU, for instance, is a very can be very agitative, and of course for some time now he's been able to manage ASU, preventing them from strike. He came up again, faced the question of IPPIS, and ensured that ASU was agitating for the removal of lecturers from IPPS. He did a lot in that regard. Then out of school children, he was doing a lot in that regard. Yes, there were one or two controversies.
And the new curriculum.
But it wasn't enough to vitiate or to diminish, his feats as a competent education minister, as the case could be. But finally, on the quality question that we are talking about, it is time that we actually tell all that, because most of the time when we see changes, it's a matter of musical chair. It's not largely because of individuals, it's largely because of the system. Our system is often overwhelming on the negative side. So if you bring an angel into some ministries, no matter try as they may be, at the end of the day, you still say that they are not doing well. So it's the system that we should look at, most of the time rather than the individuals. Because in another 2-3 years, we'll still say, oh, let's have some changes because these people who are there are not performing. So it shouldn't just be a continuous sing-song. It should be about substance, not just the form of it.
DG, sir?
Former
DG, yes, former. I'm sorry, former DG. So just weighing on this conversation as well, in terms of, like I said, let's look at the merit, in terms of timing and in terms of quality of what has happened.
But let us start by looking at the presidential system and what Mr. President set out to do from day one. He's considered the Hadiza Bala Osman committee and gave a clear mandate that there will be KPI, which is Key Performance Index. I think Mr. President had tried to exercise all the powers Section 5 of the 1999 Constitution conferred on him, that he is vested with the executive powers of the Federation, and that he exercises it or he delegates. And he had looked at the performance of some of them and yearned to some of the outcries on the street that there should be change. And even some people are agitating for more. So I think what Mr. President had done is to put the ministers on toes so that they would know that nobody there had come like in the last President Buhari's regime, where some ministers stayed for 8 years. Whether they performed, they did not perform. So Mr. President had accepted that the responsibility and the buck stops on his desk, and therefore the performance of anybody is dependent on himself. So I think he had done so well, and he needs to do more, because there are certain ministers who have no business being in his cabinet. There are certain touches that he needs to do. He did so well in the fact that he showed he's a listening president, that is listening to the streets. He had also placed some of the ministers in square pegs in square holes. When you look at Honorable Minister Imam Suleiman Ibrahim, who moved from Minister of State Police Affairs to Women Affairs. If you know her very well, she's a pro person. I think she's going to do well because she had been a person who had yearned for the implement of the gender in Nigeria. And going to the Ministry of Women Affairs, she's likely most going to do well. And remember as well that he created the Ministry of Livestock. I think it's a big kudos to Mr. President because that a large section of farmers in the country are not going to farms is because of the headers farmers clashes. I think the minister, if he takes the bull by the horn, going by all the documents like the National Livestock Transformation Plan of the governors of since 2018, and the chairman of my party, Dr. Ganduje's plan as well, he will come to put a halt to the headers farmers clashes and get a lot of farmers, especially in the food basket zones, back to the farm. It doesn't cost anything for the country to do that, even if it entails borrowing. Most countries that were faced with similar challenges went into outright ranches that cost billions, but it paid off because it has security nexus, it has food security nexus. So when you consider that it goes on two planks of security and food security and fiscal security, I think it's what they make. Going back to my own region, for Mr. President to deem it wise to appoint Ambassador Bianca Ojukuni Ono, who had come a long way, came to the national limelight as a most beautiful girl, first of Nigeria, second of Africa, and intercontinental, and was an ambassador. It means that the minister is looking beyond is looking the other side, that there are a section of the country that felt that maybe they are not part of what he's doing. And what do I do? He looked at the pedigree of the late Ikemba Newi and said the wife can be a front runner in trying to let the people know that they're part of what he's doing.
So that's, in your opinion, that's for political reasons?
No, you mustn't go just with the performance reasons only. You must make a mix. Because if a section of the country feels they are not part of what you're doing, and you have a way to bring them in, somebody had asked himself, what of these commissions? Do you need to do Southeast Commission to know that you fix the roads?
We will come back to that. Let's just take...
Because I just wanted that clarification before I get
I'm saying that the inclusion he did by appointing Ambassador Bianca is very welcome.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Osita Okechukwu. Let me now get to Dr. Abdurrahman Abu Hamisu, who is a political scientist. Doc, you've had the benefit of listening to everyone in the studio, and I just want to get your initial reaction to the developments at the Federal Executive Council yesterday, how the introduction of a new ministry, the switch from sports ministry back to National Sports Commission, and all the developments. What's your initial reaction to it?
Thank you very much. I want to say kudos to Mr. President and his team because the first principle of running every organization is the health of the organization. And you cannot measure the health of the organization if you cannot measure the performance of those that are occupying the organization. So, for instance, all the ministries are supposed to perform some roles that ought to assist Mr. President to achieve the set objectives he has pledged to deliver while he was campaigning and up to the point that he became the president. Now, it's only people that are not given to reviewing what they are doing and taking appropriate actions that will wait for the roofs of their house to fall on their heads. So, for instance, if you have a car, and you drive your car without taking a listen to the engine and all the components, you run the risk of having your car parked by the roadside with a caution sign for others to navigate. But if you deploy what I would choose to call a studious disposition to whatever endeavor that you are going to do, then you become a very restless person doing different things at the same time. And that is exactly what the president has done. What the president and his team has done is to review a lot of things. For instance, did we put the round peg in the round holes? Do we need to realign? Do we need to restructure? Do we need to review? Do we need to realign? Do we need to reshuffle? Do we need to sack? I want to hammer on something. Sack is sack, whether it is positive or negative. If we don't have the capacity to name a thing and to convey a meaning of what it is, then we'll run the risk of recycling people that are not supposed to be in the corridors of power. When somebody is sacked, the person is sacked because the performance is not okay. That is the word. So to say we are rationalizing just to cover for some persons that we feel that did not perform very well, it's not doing the country favor. We're a country of 200 million plus people. So if it means the president will continue to sack every day until he gets the right people to deliver, so be it. So I don't want us to ennoble something that is not noble. I will not be part of it, and I will dissociate myself from it, and that is exactly what I'm doing. So if they perform, they will still be in the system. On that issue of performance, there are persons in Mr. President government that also need to go. If we are to judge by indices that we use to measure performance. So for instance, you look at every sector, what is happening in those sectors. Are the sectors better off? And Nigeria is better off? Don't forget that not too long ago, Nigerians were protesting hunger. And when you analyze the factors that led to hunger, it has to do with insecurity, mainly that farmers cannot go to farm. And even if they go to farm, they cannot harvest. So what is happening to security? You talk about fuel scarcity, you talk about inflation. Now, these are constellation of factors. So if we really want to be honest with ourselves, then it means that there are a lot of persons that needed to go. But then what Mr. President has done is to say, look, we have the capacity to sack more. But for now, we are sacking just few, just to keep others on their toes, whether they are going to perform or not. The invention of sacking as punishment for non-performance is not because people are hated. It is meant to keep people on their toes, to show to others that what has happened to these persons can likely happen to you. You need to double your effort. Now, coming to issues around realignment. So, for instance, as Abdulaziz, my brother, said, you have duplications, and then that needed to be taken care of. Now, from just Niger Delta Development Commission, we have Northeast Development Commission, we now have Northwest Development Commission, then we have the Southeast Development Commission. Now, if all these commissions have come on board, who supervises them? And I think it is wise for Mr. President to have brought them under the former Niger Delta Commission. It shows that the president and those around him are thinking supervision is very key. And even the sacking is a way of showing supervision that Mr. President is in charge. Together with his team, Hadiza Bala Usman and others, they are working to review what others are doing. And we need to take action. And it is the basis of that, on the basis of that, that Mr. President has done some of this. So the realignment is very key. The conference that even produced the blueprint that went into what became the Minister of Livestock ministry today, I was part of it. It held in Abuja and about 3, and I was surprised at the level of resource that were gathered by Professor Jega and his team, his able team, and then they were able to aggregate those very particular persons and their thought into a national policy for livestock production. I think it is a problem solving for me, for the president to have listened attentively and accepted what was started by the current chairman of the APC, Dr. Ganduje, into a national framework that's supposed to guide livestock production and enhancing security within that sector of the economy. I think it's something that is commendable because it started like a Kano State thing that was supported by Kano State government that is trying to find solution to the farmer-others conflict. Now, if the president can find something that was done or supported by Kano State to be beneficial to the nation and he accepted it, then it means it's a listening president. So for me, that is why I said from the very beginning, kudos to Mr. President. These are the kind of things that we would like to say, not because we hate some persons or because we are not in power. No, I don't care who governs this country. I don't care who is the Minister of Petroleum. All I want to know is each time I drive to the filling station, I should be able to fill my tank at affordable price. So this is the spirit that we want to see govern Nigeria, though you cannot divorce it from the fact that ultimately the president will want something that will deliver votes for him if he wants to go for second term. And the politicians have a way to do it. First is either as an appointee of Mr. President, you have followership that you are able to maintain up to today that you could turn for Mr. President, or that you use your office to deliver the things that Nigerians want that will endear them to Mr. President and what he is doing, and ultimately translate to victory in 2027. But if you are not doing this, you are not able to even maintain. When you became minister, you became aloof, you've left your constituency because you have DSS and everybody around you that is guiding you, so you no longer need people, and then you have platform to perform. You have platform to perform and you are not performing, then it means you have earned a sack and you need to go on both accounts.
Dr. Hamisu, thank you. Let's quickly again start from you now before we come back to the studio to look at the substance of the action taken, the reshuffle or the removal and replacement, expansion and all that. And again, I like to look at the Niger Delta ministry that has now been expanded to the Regional Development Ministry. And some people have really expressed, mixed reaction to that. You consider the enormity of what the Niger Delta Ministry had to do and the complaints and agitations coming even from that region alone, meaning that that ministry had not effectively discharged its duties to the Niger Delta region. Now you're coming to expand and add these commissions. Isn't that an overkill? Isn't that an overload on that ministry alone?
Well, thank you very much. I think right from day one, when that ministry was created, I was even part of the people that kicked against it in the first instance, because the Niger Delta had a problem, and the problem is multifaceted that requires some level of development. Now, the Niger Delta Development Commission was there. You have the derivation principle that goes to that very particular region. You have the amnesty, and then you have Ministry of Niger Delta. And the reason why we kick against it, I want to be very patriotic and open about what I'm saying today, is because if we said, okay, because Niger Delta has a peculiar problem as a region, Niger Delta should be given a ministry, then it means that Northeast should be given a ministry. Because the problem in the Northeast is even greater than the problem in the Niger Delta. It means that Southeast should be given its own ministry. It means that Northwest currently, because it have challenges, should be given its own ministry. This is the duplication we don't want to see. Now, if Niger Delta Development Commission is meant to solve the problem of development, you are in this studio when we analyze what was done in the Niger Delta. The report has it that about $40 billion has been spent in the Niger Delta and nothing to show for it. Added to the Niger Delta ministry, added to amnesty. So if Mr. President feels that, look, we need to manage our resources based on the realities of not have overlapping and then duplicating agencies that are fighting over who does what. And let me be open with you. What has been happening in Nigeria is that when you have agencies that are overlapping, there will never be a time that they will come together to streamline their activities by way of organizing joint planning and joint execution. They will never do that. Every time they run to National Assembly, are seeking for a separate budget for themselves, and they will always ask for increment of budget. So that is frittering away our resources. So whatever resources that's supposed to be given to Niger Delta Ministry should be added to the Niger Delta Development Commission and amnesty and other framework that have been evolved, so that this very particular ministry changes to ministry that supervises all of these commissions and align their developmental programs across the region and then with federal government of Nigeria. For me, this is the rational thing to do, and Mr. President has done it. Although people will kick against it because in Nigeria, people always ask for more resources to their region, but they don't want us to ask them how they are spending those resources.
Thank you very much, Dr. Abdulrahman Abu Habisu. Let me get back here in the studio with Abdulaziz. Since we are now talking the Niger Delta, you've done some talk about it earlier, but there are also comments from some other sections. If you had, maybe because there is a peculiar situation in the Northeast. A commission was created. And then the Southeast says, oh, we've had this long-running issue. A commission was created. Now, every section of the country wants its own commission. The one you leave out will tell you that it's because you don't count them as part of it. So Southwest is getting. The South-South, I understand, is also on the way. So everybody's for a region, the oil-producing areas, because it has Ondo State in it, it has Abia in it, it has some other states that are not South. And so if we continue, we're going to create all of this into the same meaning.
For all these years, one issue is that we have had a lot of, people advocate for true federalism, which of course a lot of experts will tell you what constitutes true federalism. But of course, if you limit it even to the issue of more powers to the to the federating units. At the end, you also come to ask, like, how are these powers being managed by these federating units? Whether it is financial power in terms of more money, or in terms of other powers, like, for example, those agitating for state police and all that. We need accountability. For me, that I think is the main issue. There is need for accountability. A lot of times, people point at the top, always point at the federal government. We fail to ask, and I have been, like many years ago, I have always said, especially for my brothers from South, maybe at the Niger Delta and Southeast, who, with all respect to them, a number of them, sometimes rightfully so, complain a lot about being excluded or about not benefiting from some things. And I ask, do you ask your leaders at subnationals, what do they do with the resources already been made available to them? You go to a number of these states and you see nothing. And of course, to an extent, it's a situation almost all over the country. So sometimes it's just like the saying that we're not liking in laws, but it's the implementation. So it's the same thing. I don't think we are liking in frameworks and resources to the subnationals, but is the issue of accountability of how well are these resources being used. So if we continue, it's just like agitations for more states or things like that, you can be doing it till kingdom comes, and then there is no, it doesn't manifest in the quality of life that the people live. So that aside, politically or in terms of governance, as a government, I would say that for now, that is it, that this ministry will supervise. Supervision does not mean it is the one executing, because these are all like autonomous commissions. But of course, you need that kind of high-level coordination, even, for example, for administrative purposes, for the purpose of coming to council, because the MDs of these regional commissions are not members of the Federal Executive Council. They may have policies or programs or projects that have to be approved at the level of Federal Executive Council, and therefore you need a minister that can now be the person to coordinate these things. So I think that is basically it.
I think I'll align my thoughts, with you. Maybe probably the task now will be basically supervisory, just to supervise, activities. And that's why even at the global level, where you do not have an overriding, regulator, of the international system. That's why you had the UN, just to act as, it's a watchdog. But again, Dr. Hamisu said something about the magnitude, or if you may, the volume of challenges afflicting the different regions. And I really do not think that it would be right to begin to compare, because they affect people differently and at different degrees. So the challenges facing one region, should not be comparable to the other region. So they affect the regions, the people differently and in diverse ways. So I think I just wanted to clarify that. But let's again look at, we're still looking at the substance of, the rationalization. And I don't know what your views are about the expansion of the Ministry of Niger Delta. But let us also look at the merging of the ministries of arts, of tourism, arts and culture, with creative economy. Ab initio, I was wondering why, that sector, was, was divided in the first place.
Well, very interesting. But first, I think it's also okay for us to, for me to maybe join the debate on the nomenclature,
yes,
or how we want to describe, the activity, what happened yesterday in at the villa, between SAC, rationalization, trimming down or juggling or shuffling, as the case could be. But again, I think that in the media, in the print media, where Abdulaziz, my friend, is an expert, there's something that could trickle or could be that the editor could find very interesting, sensation, something that is much more salacious, that will strike the audience or strike the reader, and of course make the material much more compelling for you to be engaged. So if we see it playing out from yesterday up to today, it's something that we should ordinarily be used to or accept, as the case could be. But of course, we want to go with the word that the president used, which is discharge. He said they have been discharged. But Abdulaziz has moderated it by describing it as rationalization, which is not also bad.
Out of place.
Which is also out of place. But
it's sweet insight.
Yeah, again, yeah. But again, nation building is a continuous process. And that's why political scientists call it nation building. They call it nation building because it's a process. Like you're building a house, or just that this one deals largely with intangibles, you are being mindful of the psychologies of constituent units. You are being mindful of, the attitude, the disposition of constituents. You are integrating them at the level of development, at the level of representation and inclusion, making them feel that sense of belonging, consequent upon long years of longing. And everywhere else, we see it happening. Even in most sophisticated democracies, United States, United Kingdom, we still see deliberate efforts on the part of government, to be integrative, and rather than being exclusionary. So, again, we are twinkling with things in this country, but my greatest concern is the way we tweak things. It's okay for us to tweak these ministries, departments, and agencies in the spirit of cutting costs, bringing them together, harmonizing, or maybe for administrative convenience and all of that. But if it is one too many, if it is happening too frequently, where there's no continuing, when there's no stability, when there's no continuity or sustainability, it can also lead to inefficiency and the absence of productivity. Or sometimes it can even worsen the big elephant in the room that we keep talking about, which is corruption, lack of transparency and accountability. Because if there's no system, no sustainability, today there's a change here, tomorrow there's another change, it can give room for people to manipulate processes and procedures. Over in the last 10 years, for instance, we have seen some of these ministries being merged, remerged, and merged again. We probably will appreciate the president for what he's doing if it's to bring about productivity and efficiency, but we have to also be mindful of the downside of it. We have to be watchful of the inadequacy that can result from it if there's no continuity, and sustainability, because that is only on that ground, through the institutionalization of the process, that we can see actual progress and development. But again, back to the specific question of the ministries we talk about. Yes, I agree. It's fine, as much as possible if they can be integrated, because tourism, creative economy, if you look at them, whether the etymology or the morphology, whatever sense you want to look at it, they may not be too different. And again, what also matter is the human resources, or the persons, the individuals manning that ministry at the helm of affairs, the kind of dynamism, creativity, and ingenuity that they put into it. That will also matter at the end of the day, because if somebody is does not have the requisite vision and mission or the passion, to have the understanding around what the ministry is all about, then of course the person will probably be wandering in the wilderness, just trying to think that he or she should enjoy the perks and perquisites of office without necessarily delivering. So the leadership of the ministry or agency matters a lot.
What about the people? What about the workforce? Apart from the leadership, when you merge, this two big ministries. What about the workforce?
Yeah, that's why I talked about human resources. It's not just about the leadership, but the workforce is also inclusive. But the workforce relies on the leadership for direction. Okay, and if the leadership is rudderless, then of course there will be confusion in the whole place. The people are often there to be led by the leader, and that's why in that case we have to rely. We have to trust that what the president did is correct by putting there by placing the person he has in place. And we just hope that that person understands, the mission, the overarching mandate of the ministry, not necessarily particularly with the Ministry of Culture and Tourism, but with every other ministry that have been integrated.
I'm actually referring to what will be or what might be the fate of the workforce, because if you imagine these two ministries, already they have full, staff complements.
Yes, that's right.
So now you are bringing them together. And the purpose of merging or separating is for efficiency and to reduce costs.
Again, at the end of the day, I'm sure that government is very slow to discharging people. That word again, or to saying they want to sack because there will be staff who are surplus to retire to requirement. I don't see that happening, but there's a danger of us having people who will be idle. Already, there are reasons for us to suspect that in some public service or civil service organizations, some members of staff are surplus to requirement. In the private sector, what 5 people will be doing in the private sector, in the public sector, you see 20 people doing it. So you're likely to see more of that with unbridled mergers, and acquisition in the public sector that is presently ongoing. But again, if there is increased creativity, maybe some kind of ingenuity in terms of generating some new tasks for them, they could become much more productive and get people who ensure that people are adding value and of course earning the money that they are being paid, not just coming to work, sleeping and watching television, reading newspapers, and earning salary at the end of the day.
Okay, I think we just take a break. When we come back, we'll tee up from the former DG. You're watching Good Morning Nigeria. Time for a break.
Hey Eve, come and see the cool sales in here. Everything's on discount.
Yeah, I saw it already. But you know what? I've been thinking we should focus more on making things than just buying stuff.
What? You mean we shouldn't go for these awesome...
No. Hear me out, Nkechi. We are always chasing after new toys, upgrading gadgets, and buying things we don't really need. But what if we use that money to create something special?
Like what?
Anything! Instead of getting another fancy pair of shoes, we could start our own cool business together.
You mean we should become entrepreneurs?
Exactly! We could use our smart thinking to make something awesome for people. We might even make a big difference in our neighborhood.
You know what? You're right. We can learn a lot about money too.
Awesome! Let's be the heroes of our own story. Together, we can make a big change and break free from just buying stuff all the time.
One right action can make a big difference, right?
I think Amaka should just move out of the house. Yes.
No. Standing out of the house is not the right thing to do.
Oh, there you go again with your sentimental family stuff.
Baby, if our aim is to stop this affair, it is best achieved under our roof.
You do something terrible and you'll be acting innocent.
What are you going on about?
Don't ask me that question again.
You couldn't even control yourself in the presence of our visitors.
What are you accusing me of, woman?
My son, I don't know how serious you are with my daughter, but there's something that needs to be done urgently before you move any further.
Anything, I mean, just anything, just say it. I'm ready to do anything.
There is a spell that needs to be removed.
A spell?
Family forever. The story of our lives. This Sunday, live on Sporty TV. Real Betis versus Atletico Madrid. Watch live on Sporty TV. Brought to you by SportyBet. Play with champions.
You have to move from the point where you protect and defend your religion to a point where you also recognize the rights of the other person, of the other religion, and protect it. So if I am protecting my own territory and my own people and trying to emphasize their rights and protect their rights, I should also be thinking about how to protect the rights of the others.
Both Islam and Christianity recognize and defer to God, and both recognize the temporariness of the life of this world, and that ultimately we all go back to God for the day of reckoning, when everybody will render an account of his life on this temporary abode.
This Sunday, Fiorentina.
And he's done well here. Yassine Adli! He was
Roma.
big. Has Pellegrini not big? Still and all the way.
Fiorentina versus Roma. Live on Sporty TV. SportyBet sponsors coverage of the Italian Serie A.
Thanks for staying with us. This is still Good Morning Nigeria, and we've been talking about the recent cabinet reshuffle. Now let me get to the former DG of Voice of Nigeria, Osita Okechukwu. We've been talking about effectiveness, you know, with the rejig or realignment, whatever it is, but we've been talking about getting it more effective, and I make reference, you know, maybe as a guide to the Sports Commission, where we've been before. Now we came to the Ministry of Sports, we are back. So in effect, the name does not necessarily do the job because we have been there before. So is this likely a change of guard to make it more effective? And how do we get to that?
For me, I think Mr. President has done so well by instituting the Hadiza Bal-Osman Policy Committee with the tools to measure the key performance index. Both in Harvard School and all the business schools of the world, the studies, do you have a key performance index to measure the performance of each individual on daily basis? So if Mr. President strengthens what Hadiza is doing, don't forget that Hadiza herself is the daughter of late Bal-Osman, who had been an anti-corruption crusader. So if you go by that unit alone to become the ombudsman, it will get Mr. President to get what is needed. So that if he budgets 10 million naira in any department or agency or ministry, the unit will be in a position to say, Mr. President, it had been prudently used or not used. Because it's very easy to account for, under this Treasury bill, any money that leaves the Federal Treasury, if you are sincere about looking where the money went to, it's very easy. I'm one of those who had said, when we're having hitches in the Apapa Wharf, I said, why the hitch? when we have enough resources to develop the Port Harcourt Wharf or Calabar Wharf, even the new one in Ibaka, do we need the Niger Delta to do so? Do we need the Niger Delta Commission to transform the Niger Delta? Sincerely, we do not. But because of the fact that we are affected by the contagion of state capture, everybody wants to capture a unit. Whereas Abdulaziz said, nobody will even ask what he's doing with it. Rather, his people will be praising him. Osita, they made you chairman Southeast Commission. Thank God, though, we are coming around. They're not asking whether the logistics of maintaining that commission is enough to do 10 kilometers of an asphalted road. They're not thinking of the fact that from Port Harcourt to Maiduguri, the Eastern Corridor rail line, collectively of the money used in that bureaucracy will match the Chinese road belt
and road
loan to have a standard gauge that will help to empower the people of that region, where the farmers who produce tomatoes in Maiduguri will seamlessly transport the tomatoes back to Port Harcourt, both for exports, and where the petrol, the PMS, will easily be railroaded by rail. Not question of the Jigawa scenario, where the tanker will explode on the road. It becomes seamless, cheaply. So I think we should also, while we are trying to, what Mr. President is trying to rationalize, as said here, or sack, that unit, the policy units, should be strengthened, more empowered, more capable, so that Mr. President will be, because he talks about the eagerness and his determination to lead Nigeria to an irreversible growth. For us to get to that irreversible growth, to conquer hunger, he has set up the livestock ministry. Are we going to fund it? Because there will be competing resource of trying to maintain these agencies and commissions. Meanwhile, the money used to administer those commissions will be missing in getting the problem solved. So I think we should use that Hadiza committee to focus on policy direction. Why is more people going into hunger into the country? Why are more people out of school? Why are more women dying of high mortality rates? Why are we on the downside? So it's not a question of who gets what. If you talk of the state capture, that this man is chairman of this, that man is director of that, we cannot get bogged down by that. As they say, the bureaucracy had always been there. If you rationalize any ministry, the permanent secretary knows what to do. The directors know their functions. Their function has not changed. Even if you don't want to do a rationalization of staff as well, the point is, how well are you managing the prudent? If the KPI is a hammer, is a tool to that direction.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And
Thank
that
you.
policy should be strengthened.
Thank you, Mr. Kichuku, thank you. Let's bring in Dr. Hamisu and begin to look at the change of guard, as Victor rightly puts it, and look at the personalities involved now. And if we can have that list on screen, I will really appreciate it, Director, so that we know those people. Suleiman, of course, moves from police affairs to women affairs now. Former now Minister of Education, Professor Maman, has been taken off. Earlier on, Professor Adeni was making a case for him. We want to look at probably if there were, if there were, benchmarks, what would I say? Why these people were moved? If the removal, can be justified and all that. Professor Adeni had already said Professor Maman shouldn't have been removed. Can we have the list of those names, if we can have them? But let's begin with former Minister of Education, Professor Tahir Maman. Professor Hamisu.
I can hear you. You say I want to disagree with Professor Adeni. You know, that somebody is a perfect gentleman and is a disciplined person and who is supposed to use his mind to bring about changes that are needed in society. And maybe the person is not equipped for the role he has been given. For instance, when you appoint somebody who is a lab scientist to Central Bank of Nigeria to manage our inflation, except if the person is willing to drop all that is used to do in the lab and wear the lens of a financial analyst and assembling people that are conversant with financial management to be able to get solutions. So in governance, it is the mind of the person that is occupying the seat. It doesn't matter whether the person read social sciences or any course from social sciences or law or art. The mind is so versatile that it can accomplish anything. But once the person is overwhelmed and the person is grappling with the task of understanding the environment within which he is working, the terminologies, the inner working laws, as well as relationships, and the person shows sign of not being able to be at the top of the whole thing, to aggregate and analyze and bring positive change, then that person is not prepared for that office. Probably the person may have done well in different areas. So for instance, if Professor Tahir Mama is a perfect gentleman, is known with the law, is a scholar in the areas of our laws, both locally and internationally, and then he could do more at the Federal Ministry of Justice, and it's not giving Federal Ministry of Justice, and it's not ready to adapt to the challenges of the Ministry of Education because that is not where he's equipped with, and he has not assembled enough persons that could give him direction, those that are conversant with the industry. It means that he will be able to discharge his functions as a Minister of Education, and it cut across so that governance is not about the person being an expert in that area. It is also about your ability to aggregate persons that are conversant with the sector or subsector so that you can leverage on their capacity. And this is where the issue of think tanks usually come in. And the same thing I would say of Adizabala Usman's unit. That unit is doing some things, though I'm not conversant with it, apart from the fact that they are to coordinate the delivery of Mr. President's promises during the campaign, and that is all I know about that unit. Now, I want the role of that unit to be equally expanded to include what the states are doing, because the challenges we are having today are not from the skies. They are from the local governments of this country, which means the state is equally involved because the local governments are within the states. So if we're able to even get KPIs for the state, then that will even assist Mr. President so that the focus on federal government all the time will be reduced, and we can be able to say that this state is aligning their priorities and deliverables with what the government is doing or not. And then that unit is not even leveraging on our universities. These KPIs could be turned into research projects for students, both graduate and undergraduate. You have people that are doing MScs every day, PhD dissertations every day, and their report writing at the end of their graduation. Now, most of these researches usually produce innovative way of doing things, impact assessment, and so on and so forth, so that there is no linkages with our research institutions. So what is basically happening is that we do the research and they are left on the shelves of the university. Nobody is using them. So competence is something that you could get. Even most of the people that were sacked, they could get expertise from our universities. They could get expertise from our private sectors. But sometimes when people get into office, they get too comfortable because they believe that nothing will happen and they will remain there, and they think they will remain there for 4 or 8 years. So it's not about the person, but the capacity to assemble people that can deliver.
Okay, Dr. Hamisu, let's leverage this connection with you. I don't know if we'll be fortunate again to come back to you, but let's also quickly speak on Imam Suleiman's movement from police affairs to women affairs. And then let's also look at Bianca Ono. Quickly, please, if you may.
You see, Iman is somebody that I've worked with closely when she was SA to Minister of State Education. She's somebody that is a go-getter, and she started off as the head of National Commissioner for Refugees. And from there, Mr. President, that is under Buhari's administration. And the president came and felt that she has the capacity to be elevated to the minister, and then she was given the Minister of State Minister of Police Affairs. And Mr. President realizes that she could add value to the Ministry of Women Affairs. And he has done that. And this is the studious disposition that I'm talking about. Bianca, when she was, with respect to Ambassador Bianca, when she was in government as ambassador, there was no any scandal that was reported. She shows disposition to learning. She discharged her duties responsibly as a responsible citizen. So for me, bringing her back as a Minister of State for Foreign Affairs, as far as I'm concerned, it is based on her pedigree. So for me, I'm saying that pedigree should be part of it, but performance should be the overriding principle. So if she comes in tomorrow and she's not performing, nothing stops the president to say that, okay, she should go. Thank you for the little you've done for us. This is the point I'm making.
Very much, Dr. Abdurrahman Abu Hamisu. I'm back here in the studio. Perhaps Abdulaziz would be able to respond to some of the issues that have been raised. Of course, it boils down to how to get the best out of those that have been assembled for the task ahead. It's just 1 year gone, 3 years more to go. And in your opinion, in the thinking of Mr. President, is this team now ready to deliver?
Yeah, I'm sure it is. And let me go back first to what I started with at the beginning of this program, the issue of rationalization and how the president carefully analyzed with the help of the people who are, working with him in terms of assessment. When we came, there were all these decisions, like separating some of these ministries and placement of the ministers. And it is always good to, and I remember one thing that the president always says is that, he used to say it a few times, he had said it publicly even, that he is not, what he guarantees, he does not guarantee that he will not make mistakes, but what he guarantees is that if he is corrected, he will make amendments. And I think that is exactly what happened with this rationalization exercise. Like, for example, a lot of people, even at that time, criticized the rationale of putting ministers of state, for example, in Ministry of Youth, in Ministry of Police Affairs, in Ministry of Steel. But now the president had taken assessment of it, and he has perhaps discovered that he could have done it the other way around. And now all these ministries I have listed, he has relieved them of Minister of State. Because these are actually ministries that don't have much to do. So a lot of times, if you put two ministers there will be squabbles and disagreement and redundancy. Now, there were ministries that had one ministers each: Foreign Affairs, Trade and Investment, Ministry of Finance, among others, and Ministry of Works, these four, for example. And he also discovered that the ministers there, hard working as they are getting overwhelmed. And he has now, made them into two ministries. Each ministry now has, among these four, has a Minister of State.
No, I'm sorry, just to get clarification here. When you make a ministry, two-minister ministry, does the president tell them what the minister does and what the Minister of State does, or they work it out themselves?
Well, that's part of the responsibility of the policy coordination units that Hadiza Bala Osman is heading. They give each minister his own KPI, his own mandate. First, not before even the KPI is the work schedule. So each of the ministers has his own work schedules. And based on that work schedules, KPIs are also developed to now assess your progress, and that was actually what happened before this decision was arrived at. So it's the same thing. Now, the minister and the Minister of State have clear-cut, mandates that you are responsible for this, and that. The Minister of State is responsible for this, and that. Of course, there is also coordination because the convention, or I don't know that it is the law, is that the Minister of State, the minister is the one that presents memos from that ministry at the Federal Executive Council. And I think that is largely the difference. Except where the minister is not around and he directs the Minister of State to do so, because of course there still should be leadership, because it's one ministry, so you can't have two independent ministers operating in the same ministry. So that's what happened, and the president now, make these changes, remove ministers of state where they are not needed and put them where they are needed. So that is very important, a salient point in this whole exercise that I would want people to reflect on, and also in terms of generally managing efficiency, because this is what will actually drive efficiency. And the ministers also, as Dr. Havisu has said, who was a bit more blunt, I feel it's not like we are trying to gloss over this or make a euphemism out of it, but it's the fact that people are not just sacked as a vote of no confidence, but also it is actually, as he said, an indicator to others that are remaining that if you don't sit up and perform well, tomorrow it could be you. Because as the president has said, this is an ongoing process. It's not something that is one-off. It is
all right, thank you. Yes. We've run out of time almost completely. Just your final remarks. Sometimes people would say, if the Constitution says all states should have input in the Federal Executive Council, then some would argue, why is my state getting a Minister of State and why is the other one getting a minister? So these are some of the issues.
Focus on the bigger picture, really. Bigger picture of the system rather than individuals. Individuals sitting where and at every point in time. Because sometimes if you bring an angel into organizations, if the system is not appropriate for them, they are going to fail. And let's also, beyond that, it's also important for us to redefine our values, the kind of values we are subscribing to.
Indeed.
If we have right values, of course, the individuals coming in to further those values will further enhance and engender it, not worsening it.
We've run out of time. Mr. Okechukwu, in 30 seconds, please, your closing remarks.
My appeal to Mr. President is to empower the Women Affairs Department Ministry so that humanitarian will be of help to it. Secondly, the Livestock Ministry, because the livestock is a non-kinetic approach to security. Thirdly, the Balancement Unit should be strengthened to work with the EFCC and the ICPC. And Mr. President should relinquish the Petroleum Ministry so that it could also be supervised. As a Minister of Petroleum, I don't know how Bala will supervise the ministry to get the oil mafia. To get the oil mafia out of our chain. Thank you
very much.
Because the oil mafia is holding us here.
That's a fine place to leave this conversation. Mr. Osito Okechukwu, former Director General, Voice of Nigeria, we thank you very much, as always, for being on the program. Let me also thank Professor Abiodun Adeniyi, Dean, School of Postgraduate Studies at the